Monster tamers have always been something that I've adored as a kid, so it's been really painful for me in the last recent years that my interest has been getting real thin lately. So I thought maybe I was sick of the genre, or I had no interest in it. However, after playing Cassette Beasts, it's definitely reignited my passion for monster tamers. This is the first ever scripted video I've ever done, so please let me know what you think, as this is all scary and new, and I'm terrified. But anyway, let's get on with my first ever Sylvie reviews. Cassette Beast starts off with the player drifting up on an island where all the inhabitants are trapped and with no hope. Thanks to your fellow tamer, Kaylee, you are given a cassette and a tape, which is your equivalent to a monster in this game, to help in your adventure. The player is given the choice of sweet or spooky. This only affects your starter Pokemon and nothing else. You do get access to your other starter later, so don't worry about which one you pick. However, it is much later and in the endgame, so make sure you pick the one that you like. And if you really want to, just look up the final evolutions, so you'll be all happy and dandy. Kaylee joins your party and helps you find a train station with one of the deadliest beings inside, an Archangel. After defeating the Archangel with the help of Fusion, you find a potential solution for escaping the island. The Archangel gives you a riddle in small pieces. The only way to get more of the riddle is to defeat more Archangels. The premise of the story is mostly alright. It's about what you would expect from a normal typical monster tamer game. However, I do find that the world and the lore behind these beings and characters is what really sells it for me. I also enjoy finding out about my fellow party members, how they got there, their own personal goals. I do, however, wish that there was either more quests or more instances to get to know the characters. Otherwise, mostly for me, they're just kind of one-noted. They usually have one typical thing that they say, or just one typical emotion or way they would react to something, and there isn't as much depth until you get to, like, right at the end of their stories. But yeah, it's not the best. So, quick refresher. Defeat the Archangels, solve riddles, and escape. Sounds pretty simple. And just sounds almost kind of like a coat of paint of gym leaders, you may think. And my response to that is, shut up. We'll get to that in the next segment. The gameplay. Yes, the main story for Cassette Beasts is pretty similar in terms of the actual beats in order to progress and finish the game, like other series, but there is a little bit of spice that makes Cassette Beasts a little more interesting, for me at least, in my opinion. For instance, we have multiple quest lines that you can do. Party members have loyalty missions, kind of, that you have to do, and eventually will lead to other things that you have to eventually do in order to beat the game. So that's another way you can learn about the characters as well, and then eventually you can fuse with them for doing these missions, which is a really handy thing. However, it is pretty rough too, because there are some characters that I really wanted to use. However, I couldn't really use them that much because I can't fuse right away with them due to story purposes with them. I have to do their story mission first in order to fuse with them. But one of them in particular, you have to almost explore the whole entire world in order to actually use them, well, fuse with them, which is the main concept of the game. You want to be fusing, and if you don't fuse most of the larger enemies in the game, they will kind of dominate you. If you're fighting either, if you're fighting Archangels or you're fighting Rogue Fusions, for instance, you're going to be in for a hell of a rough time if you don't have access to fusion, so you're really handicapping yourself. But if you really want the character in your team, you just get an endless loop of, I want to use you, but I can't fuse with you, and I'm not leveling up our heart points because I haven't leveled you up yet, because I haven't done your quest, and your quest takes forever, and it's rough. It's rough. I wish you could just fuse from the start, just make their initial dialogue, do some kind of fusion thing, and then move on with their quest to learn more about them. So I can actually use the ones I want to. I had to use other people I didn't want to for the longest time before I could use some of the ones that I wanted to, which was really annoying. I really wanted to use my boy, but I couldn't. It was rough. The core mechanics of Cassette Beasts is its fusion system. Any stage of an evolution can fuse Dragon Ball style with any other or the same evolution, giving thousands of possible creations. Luckily, there's no achievement to collect all these, because trust me, if I saw an achievement that was like, oh, you gotta fuse 50,000 of these things, there aren't even 50,000 fusions, I don't think, but that's besides the point. But if there was, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't. It would make me very mad. One of the main features of Cassette Beasts is the fact that it's an open mode adventure. There is obviously set location to location routes that you can take. However, I never found myself completely outmatched when visiting these areas until around the last 2 areas of the game was when I started encountering enemies that were a bit too high for me. However, this is coming from my perspective, and I was a bit silly in trying to complete it as fast as possible, so my teams are always of really pre-evolution monsters, and I wasn't really trying too hard to make good teams. Had I done that, I think I would have had a simple time anyway, and the level gap wouldn't really have mattered that much regardless, so I don't really think that's much of an issue. But yes, usually, for me, it was pretty fine. While you travel the open world, there you will have to battle. The whole game, besides a couple of instances, uses a 2v2 combat system. You and your companion versus either 1 to 2 enemy trainers or 1+ beasts. The battle system uses an AP system, giving you 2 AP every turn, and this is probably my largest issue with the combat of Cassette Beasts. I'm fine with an AP system, however, I ended up kind of mostly just using 0 to 1, maybe 2 AP, well, usually 2 AP moves every single turn, because usually trying to use a skill and then waiting to kind of stall for a larger move later just tends to kind of get you more screwed in this game. In my experience, a lot of the enemies later can just kind of destroy you in a couple turns regardless, so you really just want to pump out damage as much as possible, and usually spamming 2 AP moves did about as much damage as using the higher AP moves until you get to the later endgame builds, which you can kind of do a lot of different stuff with. But for the most part of the game, I didn't really end up using a lot of the big skills because I didn't really find it as efficient to use those skills, because I'd have to use a 0 AP move just to use a 4 AP move, but I could also just use a 2 AP move that would result in about the same, if not higher damage sometimes. So, you know, it can just get a little bit goofy. I think what I would do to recommend, well, what I would recommend you do is probably just make not everything cost AP at that point, is just have a lot of the larger skills use AP for bigger moves, and then just let you use a set of moves that cost no AP, so you still get to use the moves that you want, and then farm up for these big skills so you can actually get to use them. The only time that I was able to use these skills was when you fuse, because when you fuse, you get 4 AP every turn, letting you spam a lot of the most powerful moves over and over again, which at some points is kind of busted and can get you into almost guaranteed winning situations most of the time. You and your party members also have your own base stats, as well as unique cassettes to your party members that they can use and get bonuses from. So Kaylee, for instance, has her signature one she starts out with. If you use it, you get a big damage bonus, which is really good for clearing out monsters, especially in the early game, as you don't have a lot of tools to do a large amount of damage until you get some cassettes later. So that extra bonus and getting able to just shred early game really helps out quite a lot, in my opinion. I think it's a nice feature. You don't really use it too much, especially late game, because you're using just the best monsters or your own big team anyway, so it doesn't really matter too much. However, pay attention to those stats, because you really don't want to have... Usually they're pretty even spread, but most of the time they have something that they're really good at and something they're really bad at. So just try not to give them monsters that use the physical moves if they're a ranged specialist, for instance. You know, just be smart, okay? Use your brain. On top of fighting the Archangels, there are also 12 gym battles that you can do to earn your gym license, which gives you access to the end game content once you've beaten the game and done all the stuff. Or you can really do it before if you want to, but however, I did it all at the end. It's pretty brutal. Honestly, the fight to get to the end game content is one of the hardest fights in the entire game. For me, I struggled the most of it, but that was also because afterwards I used a very broken combo that we'll get to later. But this, alongside of a large amount of side quests, which for the most part help unlock more of the game's features, from changing the environment of your town to getting new vendors to buy new abilities from. It's a lot of simple stuff. Usually they aren't too bad. It's like get 300 of this material, which is really easy to get. It's not really the most craziest thing in the world, but I just like the ability to go do side quests and explore and do things and talk to people and get rewarded for just going around and doing things. Whereas normally it's just you would explore to maybe get some items to help you with your journey, and you just go along doing your main quest anyway and get to the end. However, here I could just take my time, chill, go through it, and have a really fun time with it. And get rewarded, and get nice little visual changes, and just feel good when I see the little side quest complete, and get the little noise in my head that make me go brrr. There are other quests called rumors that act as the game's way of helping the player find specific locations in the open world that can be easily missed going your first time around, or if you just kind of miss it slightly, and you can get back and find stuff if you missed it, which is really helpful because the world is big and there are certain locations that like turn your camera around that you can't normally find, or small little indents and small little things that just can be easily missed, or a certain puzzle you didn't notice. Something like that can really help out finding these locations that are just so easy to miss. So these rumors helping you find them really help out. They also give you the access to find out the locations of like gym leaders, or where certain train stations can be located. Which train stations, by the way, I didn't think I've said it yet, are the way that the game's fast travel system works. You have to find the train station, and then you can fast travel around between these locations. Which is also one of my pet peeves while I'm on this topic. I don't like the fact that you can only fast travel between these locations and the main city, and one other small base right next to it, but that's besides the point. But only between these things. There are campsites as well that I would love to also fast travel between, because sometimes, especially in the later half of the game, I did not find a train station for the longest time, so I always had to run from the city or from a really far away area and like the right side to get to the left side of the map. And it's just painful. It was really painful. I really wish I could just fast travel to the campsite that I was at in the area, and then I could explore the area. It was quite annoying. I understand probably why, is because, we don't want you to be able to fast travel back to camp, heal, and then go back to the campsite. But, like, wood doesn't matter in this game. Resources don't matter that much, honestly. You will be just stock full of resources that it doesn't matter. So just let me, please let me fast travel between my campsites. It got very frustrating in the end, and I just wanted to find a train station so bad, and I couldn't find one for the longest time, and I was getting really frustrated that to keep running back and wasting my damn time. So stop it. Just let me fast travel. That's all I'm asking for. The actual monster taming in Cassette Beasts I found to be extremely good, and overall an improvement to the capturing system. You can start capturing anything other than a trainer or a rogue fusion, or just any fusion in general. When you start capturing them, it gives you a % chance of success. So when you start capturing someone, you can see 36%, 56%, 58%, that type of stuff. So you can see your odds of success once the turn is ended. However, when you're starting to capture the enemy monster, they have a turn to whack you and kill you. You're defenseless in this point. I don't believe can dodge anything or anything like that. Nothing can really miss. As far as I've seen when I've done it, I've always been very vulnerable, and I've never gotten a hit. I've never dodged anything at this point. So you're very weak and very vulnerable, very frail, baby. Gotta protect yourself. Gotta add stats effects to the enemy, or just flat out kill the other one you don't want to capture, so you can just focus on the one you want so you don't get murdered. If they whack you, it will lower the chance of success, which is bad. You don't want that, and you don't want to die either. So that can happen. However, you have the turn as well. The other person in your party can attack the Pokemon. Can attack the monster, Sylvie. Can attack the monster. This isn't Pokemon. This is Cassette Beasts. We're not talking about Pokemon here. It's not Pokemon. Jeez. So, when you're capturing the monster, you can also damage the monster in order to increase the odds of success, which is where the big part comes in, because sometimes you're like, oh, I'm really worried. What if I kill the monster? You may be asking, Sylvie, what if I kill it? I don't want to do that. Well, that's the best part, though, is because when you're actually capturing a monster in Cassette Beasts, that monster cannot die to anything. If they get reduced to 0 HP, it's 1 HP, and gives you usually the highest odds of success possible. Usually it almost guarantees it for me, if not gets it to about 85-90% for the larger monsters, using the correct upgrade, using the correct like capturing tool. So for the most part, you can just go ahead and use your big moves and just weaken them, kill them, get them to 0 as you're capturing them, which is really handy because it's always the most painful thing when you really want to just capture something but you want to lower their HP to make the odds more successful, but you're going to murder them. It's the worst. However, this just resolves that issue and makes it just really easy. I can capture without a care in the world, and it is my favorite thing in this game, to be honest. Capturing all the monsters for me was way easier, that I didn't have to worry that I was going to kill it or anything stupid. I just had to worry about not getting murdered, which I loved. I loved it. It was great. Throughout your journey, you'll encounter lots of rogue fusions, either out in the world or from opening certain chests. These fusions can vary from fighting a single enemy fusion with another normal monster, or an onslaught of 3 smaller monsters that finish with a fusion at the end. There is another secret rogue fusion, but I won't spoil that because it's due to the endgame stuff. However, I think this system is really good. I think it offers a good challenge for me specifically because my team wasn't the best, and I found these things to be a good test of my skill and just trying to mix and match and use correct fusions at the right time and just trying to be the best that I physically can. And there was a lot of times I nearly actually lost these battles, which rarely happens, especially in the early game. In the early game, they can feel really brutal, especially when you don't have fusion from a certain party member, but that's fine. This game has a very interesting shiny system called bootlegs. The odds, I think, are about 1 in 1,000 in this game, making them way more common to find them in a casual playthrough. I found probably about 4 to 5 in my playthrough, which I think was pretty good. It was very fun to see, and I always get like a bit hyped, like, whoa, there's this little thing. They included a new neat feature as well, so it makes it really easy to find them. You'll see out in the open world, they have like an actual like glitch effect on them, as well as like you'll hear the sound in the distance, so it's very hard to miss them, which I was very appreciative of because I was always worried running through, what if I missed them? But luckily, it's really hard to miss them, and it was great because the system's really good. So basically, every single creature has a bootleg / shiny variant of it for every single element. So for example, you can have an astral type traffic crab as a total random example. There's even a secret evolution in this game that you can get by having a specific shiny bootleg of that specific monster when you evolve it. Luckily, there is an endgame system in the game where you can use save scumming to try to get the bootleg that you want, which definitely helped me in the endgame because my last few achievements was just to get the different types of shinies or the different types of bootlegs in this game. So that definitely saved a lot of time for me and made me actually able to complete this game, which definitely helps a lot when you ain't got a lot of time to do all this stuff. So yeah, I thought it was great and adds a lot of just endgame farming because if you want, you can try to get a bootleg of every single monster of every single type, which will take you a very, very long time. But it's so cool because they get new movesets and have different abilities and get different elements, and it's really cool and interesting. I love the system. I think it's great. Changing the actual typing of it just actually adds a lot more depth and letting you use the ones that you want to use, but just different like color variations of them and stuff. It's all cool. I loved it. It's my favorite implementation of shinies that I've seen in any of these games so far. So yeah, I think it's pretty great. A small note on the music, as I'm not a composer or anything like that. I was just a choir boy. I found the music in the overworld and in the main city to be extremely relaxing, and it was all just a vibe to play. It just made me feel just really comfortable and at home, and just casually I could relax and just play the game and enjoy myself. And it just felt like a vacation, to be honest. I was really in a kind of weird spot the last couple months, and this game just kind of helped me relax a little bit and just not stress and have anxiety overwhelm me, and it was such a nice experience to my eardrums and my body and my soul. And yeah, the battle music especially, when you fuse as well, the battle music changes and adds the vocal track to it, which is really hype in some instances, and it just really makes the fusion feel more special and impactful, which is all for the best, because fusion is like one of the main premises of this game. You know, you want to fuse and you get a big thing and you feel really cool when you do it. You get the backing track and it's all great. It's awesome. Almost all of the tracks in this game are bangers, and they're great. I love them. Now, as I said, I did complete this game. I did get every achievement, and I did what I can. I didn't get every single shiny of every single monster, but I got every single achievement that I could and did all the endgame stuff that I physically can, to my knowledge, at least. Which for me is mostly completion, you know. So during that time, there was a little frustration with the endgame system. My main gripe is the endgame quest board system. So one of the achievements is doing 50 of these quests, which at first I thought wasn't going to be too bad, because when I started it, it was just like, oh, you actually get some new quest lines, and some new actual characters get introduced, and they have their own separate little things going on. You can do stuff with them every, like 15 or so quests. The first 15 are relatively unique, which I was like, oh, this is going to be great. I get more content, and I get new, like, characters and quest lines to do with them and stuff like that. It'll be great. But then past that around 15-ish mark, maybe even before that, I'm not too sure, it ends up being just do the same quests over and over again, like go grab this location from X location, fight these trainers here, do this specific thing, fight Y amount of rogue fusions, and then come back and then do it over and over again. This section of completion was the most boring and painful of it. It really just made me want to not really play anymore, and I was just forcing myself to do it just to get through it, because I was so far in the game at that point, and I was like, I might as well get it this way. You can do all the endgame content without doing the quest boards. You can do, you can just farm the endgame bosses over and over again to get it up, and then do the free sets of quests. However, if you want the achievement, you're gonna have to do 50. And that is, it's not too long, it's a few hours, but it is just very, very boring and dull. Like I said, first 15, loved it. I was having a great time. And then past that, it just felt like a massive slog, and it really dragged on for me. But that was about it. Like, everything else I thought was really good. The difficulty was there. It was great. All the stuff was great. I don't know. It was great. It was a great time. I would appreciate it if there was a little bit more uniqueness in that, you know? I just, like, wish I had some more quests or some more unique things to do. Even if it was a little, like, if it was the same quest over and over again, but it was, like, 20 or so variations, so it's at least something different, then it would be mostly be fine. But the fact that it was, like, usually about 5 different quests that it could rotate between, that's the worst part about it, you know? Just give me some more different things to do so it at least feels different while I'm doing it. Now, getting through this long slog definitely was long. However, like, had I not used this broken cassette combo, this cassette and ability setup combo, I would not have probably even gone for this achievement, because it would have just dragged on so much, and it would have been really painful to do. But I will show it off here, because it's busted. Like, you can just destroy literally any enemy in the game as long as it's not wind. It's just, it's crazy. You do so much damage, and you can win before the battle even begins, and it is honestly basically cheating, but, you know, it's what we gotta do if we want to complete these fast, so I can get these out here. So yeah, there needs to just be more variations for the quests. That's my end result. That's my tip. Sylvie's pro tip here is just give me more things to do so I don't feel like a slog going through them, so I have to basically cheat through them, you know? In the end, I'm really glad I completed this game. Trying to compare this game to something like Pokemon honestly is not fair, even though I've made the mistake of constantly calling the beasts in here Pokemon. It's just a habit. I'm sorry. It's what's gonna happen. Same thing with shinies. I'm gonna call them shinies, not bootlegs. That's just what I do. But Cassette Beast has a very similar structure to the game. However, its gameplay loop and mechanics are really different, and does make it stand out from the crowd of these types of games from what I've experienced so far. It gives its own unique style and flavor with the 80s like kind of style, and with the cassettes, the nice little flavor, the character design, the art style. Everything is really good, and I found it really interesting, at least completing the game normally, like main story-wise. Getting through the game itself was a great experience, and I loved it. That's easily a 10 out of 10 experience, for me at least. However, the end game stuff really tried to like drag it down a little bit, but there is enough variation there to keep me still loving this game. And I would still honestly play it. Like, if I wanted to shiny hunt and stuff like that, I would do that. I would love to get all the shinies if I had all the time in the world, which I don't as a creator. Oh god. But yeah, if you have any remote interest in the genre, you will love this game. There are so many different beasts in there that I was like, this is my new favorite thing of all time. This is my child. I will protect this small beast until I die, because this is my new favorite thing in the world. I said that multiple times, and it was just great. It's a great thing. I really encourage you to check it out. Cassette Beasts, for me, is a 9 out of 10. Fantastic game. Hey, Post Sylvie here. After writing this script, I then noticed Cassette Beast is releasing some more DLC. So they, like, wouldn't ruin my completion by adding some more achievements, right? Right?